You know what? Despite the score, despite the disappointment that was the Vancouver Canucks against the New York Islanders, I actually had a pretty good time. I just came back from Brewhouse. Shout out to my hockey team, the Dilfs, going out there, having a good time, having some good chats, and watching the game all together. It was great. Had some wings, had some veggies, had some nachos, all good. But whilst the experience of watching the game was fun, the hockey game itself was not all too fun, and I actually found myself looking 90 degrees to my right watching the Seattle Kraken and the Chicago game, just because I needed to pay attention to my fantasy guys. But today's Vancouver game, man, wow, that sucked. The Vancouver Canucks lost 5-2 to the New York Islanders in a game that Vancouver pretty much lost right after the first period. Okay, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but hear me out here. The best story of this game for Vancouver was the fact that Jonathan Lekkerimaki scored his very first NHL goal. What a beautiful feat out here to get things started 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. It's Filip Hronek who ends up throwing the puck over to JT Miller, who is streaking into the neutral zone. Miller cuts into the O-zone, throws it to his left side, and Lekkerimaki, like a prime Brock Besser in his rookie season, snipes it on the 1T, on the rush. He goes short side on Semyon Varlamov, and it's a beautiful first NHL goal. This might be the most beautiful first NHL goal for a Vancouver Canucks first-round pick since Elias Pettersson's first goal, all the way back in his rookie season in 2018, the on-the-rush snipe, while he locked up and loaded on the right side. Lekkerimaki's goal, a little bit different, but equally impressive as a pure snipe. It gets Vancouver on the board, it's 1-0, and then the rest of the game happens. And, we'll just sum up the rest of the game here, because I don't want to describe and accurately go over 5 straight New York Islander goals. That just doesn't feel right. But ultimately, the Islanders scored the next 5. Pageau on the power play scored, Scott Mayfield scored, Pierre Engvall scored, Anders Lee scored, Noah Dobson got the empty net, Bo Horvat got a bunch of assists in this one. And ultimately, the Islanders just decided that they were going to win this game. And I say they decided because they took it to Vancouver after that first goal. The Islanders just decided to have more zone time. The Vancouver Canucks didn't really respond much. The Canucks had 3 shots in the first period. They had 3 shots in the second, and then in the third, they had 20. So you'll look at this game on paper and say, wow, the Canucks only got outshot 32-26. They must have been right in it. Nope, they weren't. They had 6 shots in the first 2 periods combined. And New York just had the territorial advantage for the majority of this game, that by the time that second period begun and Scott Mayfield scored, oh yeah, you could already tell where this game was going. If we talk about the individual goals, though, you talk about some of the plays that Vancouver Canucks guys had when those goals went in. The 1-1 goal, the Pageau power play marker, was a stellar defensive performance by Tyler Myers, letting Pageau just waltz right into the back door with no contention. Myers, the positioning of his stick, just so imperfect and out of place. He kind of moves his stick out of the way when the cross crease comes over. Then the next goal, Scott Mayfield scores, great, his first of the year. It's a long shot from the point that goes off a JT Miller stick. So some friendly fire there from the Vancouver Canucks. The next goal, 2 minutes later, guess what? The Canucks get cycled around in their own zone, and Carson Soucy is the guy who gets into the washing machine, and he goes through the Ultra Deluxe Spin Cycle 5000 as he completely loses his guy. And the Islanders score a really nice goal. Pierre Engvall gets his first of the year. Yeah, everybody's getting their firsts of the year against the Canucks. And they're doing this without Matthew Barzal, by the way. How crazy is that? Anyways, it's the guy on the rebound, Pierre Engvall, who ends up getting that goal. And eventually it carries over into the third period, where Anders Lee makes it 4-1. It's a rush chance where the Islanders are able to settle it down, get a nice shot to go through, and, it's a cross crease. It's a good one. Noah Dobson got the empty net there for 5-1, and then Tyler Myers scored to make it 5-2, so the Canucks did have some life at the very end of the game in the last minute and a half for Tyler Myers to get his first on the season, assisted by Teddy Bluger. Now, I wanted to just go over some of the notes, some of the stories about this, because the game itself stunk. Kevin Lankinen, he let in 4, but you can't really expect the guy to go out there and consistently stop backdoor tap-ins and shots that go off of his own players in front. But ultimately, the Canucks played so poor defensively, highlighted by that Soucy and Myers pairing. Man, were they bad in this one. Like, we've been hammering that hammer down onto the nail that is the Soucy-Myers pairing, but in this game, just the lack of awareness, the lack of presence, the lack of execution, it was more rampant in this game than I think any of the other games we have seen. This might have been the worst game they have played together. We can talk about officiating. The Vancouver Canucks only had 1 power play in this game. The Islanders had 5. Nice to see that go in the one way. And Vancouver, to their credit, I will say the power play did look good, but you also have to say that the power play was a 6-on-4 because it was at the end of the game. The Canucks got themselves their first man advantage and then they pulled the goalie with 5 minutes to go. It was a good power play, though. I will say, Pettersson looked strong. He actually had a game that I wouldn't necessarily call bad. Sure, there were, like, a few moments, especially towards the end of the third, where I think Pettersson held onto the puck too long and he made maybe improper passes, passing it to the wrong guy rather than the guy who had a better scoring opportunity. But aside from those few moments, I think Pettersson had an okay game, especially on the man advantage in the third period, because for the first time in what seems like years, Elias Pettersson finally started dripping and ripping those 1-Ts on goal. He had 2 in quick succession, NHL 25 1-T style, where he would just absolutely lock and load, receive the pass, and fire it from the hip with no qualms. He did that twice, and I think out of all of the bad things that happened in this game, that might be the biggest takeaway for me, personally, that Elias Pettersson can finally shoot the 1-T. It's been years since we have seen this go okay, not years. He was kind of doing that last year. But ultimately, it's been a long time since we have seen Pettersson comfortably do that. So actually seeing him pull it off in a game today, pretty great to see. Now, other positive Canucks stories. Dakota Joshua made his return. He didn't have himself, like, the best game, especially for a guy who is, you know, coming in with the expectations and the contract that he had signed previously. But you got to remember, the guy had cancer. So he is back, and I think Dakota Joshua has earned the right to have much leeway, maybe for like 2 weeks or so, before we really start critiquing parts of his game. But I will say, he did have a few hits in this one. He also did have a really nice centering pass to Aatu in the second period that looked dangerous and got the Canucks' first shot in what seemed like years. So Aatu had himself a prime scoring opportunity. He did, however, pretty much directly assist on one of the main goals scored by the New York guys. It was a disallowed Islanders goal for offside, but the Islanders were cycling it around in the Vancouver zone, and then Aatu had a chance to clear it out in front. Carson Soucy took himself way out of the play, just a terrible defensive showcase there. And then the Islanders guy, I forgot who it was, Palmieri, I think, was able to just dangle around Lankinen and sprawled out because Ratu and Soucy both left their checks. That goal was disallowed. It was offside. The Canucks had their own goal disallowed as well. A deflection in front by Nils Höglander that looked like it might have gone off the glove or the stick or whatever, but I was kind of thinking about it because Höglander moved his stick out of the way, and in the process of doing that, it kind of looked like a motion that was pushing the puck towards the goal. Obviously not intentional, but something that the NHL people will go out there and look at. It was ultimately called no goal either, so 2 no goals in this game, 1 for each team, but ultimately at the end of the day, the Vancouver Canucks lose 5-2. Kiefer Sherwood had a whole bunch of hits, so did Dakota Joshua. Dak looked pretty okay, but ultimately this was not a good game for many Vancouver players, aside from, I guess, Lekkerimaki, who had his first NHL goal. Tyler Myers, of course, also scored towards the end there, but nobody really will pay attention to that. Dead time. Semyon Varlamov had been good all game, and then he just lets in that floater from right outside the hash mark. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below about the Vancouver Canucks and their loss to the New York Islanders at home. It is becoming a lot more apparent that the Vancouver Canucks just cannot play well at home. Like, what is going on with this team that they're incapable of actually finding the back of the net and doing things when they have home court advantage? Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Vrishar Scrolls 99, and bye.